Well, it's hello from him.
Richard Moore, and it's hello from her.
It's Michelle Monroe again, and I'm very excited, not just by doing our podcast every month, but today marks another very special guest. Now, born Kenneth McGlashan in Huyton, Lancashire, this dear friend of mine is an actor, director, producer, singer, radio presenter, talent agent, an all-round entrepreneur, and I hate every fibre of his extraordinary talents. Not content with appearing in one soap opera, he's been seen in Brookside, Coronation Street and Emmerdale, and a host of popular television shows such as Loose Women, Dancing on Ice, Blankety Blank, just to name a few. So please welcome the wonderfully talented Sam Kane.
So many names, so many words. Do you know what? What an introduction. And when I do radio intros, I always try and find the things that would really excite the people that I'm talking to. And it's the first time it's happened to me. Now I understand how they feel. So thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. How are you doing?
It's hard to lie, but, one tries.
It is weird, though, isn't it, Michelle? When you look back and you go, actually, yeah, that was quite a bit. We've been busy.
We've been busy, and you don't realise until sometimes you sit down and think about everything you've done, and you think, wow.
Well, me and my wife, both the same. I'm a very fortunate human being that's married to Linda Lusardi. We are both of a similar kind of mind, that when you do a job, you go in, you put your everything into it. And then when it's done, you wipe the slate clean and then you move on to the next one. And whether somebody brings that up in conversation, or it may be an instance that you need to use as an example, or if you're just round the table just telling showbiz stories, every now and again that happens, we just tend not to look back that often.
No.
And then when you do, like you've just done, you've basically pointed out a few things. I mean, Kenneth McGlashan, obvious reasons I changed that, right?
Well, a bit like Terry Parsons.
There you go. Do you know why it was changed? Well, for many reasons. I've always hated the name Ken because I was named after my dad, who's Ken, right? So I've always hated that name because I always thought it was an old man's name. Always thought I should have been in someone else's shoes. And then I started in showbiz and theatre school when I was 16, and very soon started working the working men's clubs. And when you go to Bradford or Wigan and your name is Kenny McGlashan, the amount of weird ways my name was interpreted through those different MCs bringing you onto the stage, I just thought, I can't go on with this. Bradford, I was introduced as Kenab McGlashan. Yeah. I was even billed on a poster outside a theatre as Kenneth McGlaster. And I just thought, this is just getting ridiculous now. Nobody can spell it. Nobody can pronounce it. So, and I've always been called Sam as a child, as almost like a, can I swear on this? A bit of a piss take, I guess, a skit, one of those names that you got when you were.
Did your dad call you Sam?
Yeah, they called me Sam from a character on When the Boat Comes In. Because we all had second-hand clothes from my Auntie Nell's market stall in Liverpool. And I had these 1950s, checkered shorts that looked like I'd just come out of a Dickensian play somewhere. It was just very odd. Went to school as a Japanese sniper because that's where they shopped. It was just, a weird upbringing. So I looked like this kid from the 1870s, and so the nickname Sam just stuck. And then I owned it. And then he started calling me Ken. So anyway, this is like therapy, this. It's amazing.
Well, Dad grew up in war-torn Britain, and his childhood was spent roaming the bombed-out streets looking for pieces of shrapnel. His home was devastated by the blast, and he attended 5 different schools within a very short period. And to keep him safe, he was evacuated to several different homes. Now, what were you like as a child, and do you have a favourite childhood memory?
As a kid, I mean, I guess you can only ever talk about what people or how people described you as a child. And I was described as a very happy child. I was always in my own head, doing my own thing, entertaining myself. If I wasn't learning how to play an instrument, I was out creating stuff. So I've always been, as a child, just creative. And I do have a really happy memory, actually. And believe it or not, I swear to God, this has only just come to mind. Being sat in the car on the way to somewhere on holiday, my sister next to me, I'm in the back, and my mum and dad in the front, my dad driving. And my dad always had a case of cassettes. Amongst them were various cassettes of your father. And I remember a song being played, If I Never Sing Another Song, and I'm singing along with it. And I heard my mother, who didn't think I could hear, she went, listen to him, Ken, he's even got that wobble in his voice. obviously she described it vibrato. I must have been about 6 or 7 years of age, and I'm singing the words to Matt Monroe songs.
Oh.
So it's been with me all my life, Michele, all my life.
Well, Daddy's father died when he was only 3, but he adored his mother. And what was your relationship with your parents like?
An amazing relationship with my mother, who basically brought us up, really. And my dad was away working a lot of the time. He was a long-distance haulage driver. So we get to see him at weekends every now and again in the evening. So it didn't really have much of a relationship. Got much more of a relationship when I grew up, and he slowed down and, got to know him as a man. But my mother, and we lost my mum very early in her life. She passed away at 61, and you know that feeling yourself, Michele. It's a devastation you never get over. But, a strong relationship.
Mm. Is there anything you'd change about your childhood?
My name, I did that. No, it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, if you changed who you were and how you were brought up, would you be who you are now? I think it's all that, the same and the change in the time continuum and all that Back to the Future stuff. Would you be the same? I don't know if you'd have made the same decisions. Would you be in the same place? So it's brought me where I am now, so I probably wouldn't change that, as cliche as it may sound.
Well, at the age of 14, Daddy was roaming the streets of the East End, getting up to sing with the resident trios in the local pubs if they'd pass the hat around him at the end of his stint. When did you know you wanted a career in show business? My
earliest memory, strangely as that sounds, my mum used to quote to me, because I learned all the words to American Pie apparently when I was 18 months old. I have no recollection of this. Now that's a long song, American Pie. It's about 7.5, 8 minutes long. And I knew all the words apparently. And they'd say to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say, I want to be a group. So I wanted to be in a band from the moment I ever wanted to be anything. And all my life, that's all I ever wanted to be. I always played an instrument. I always hummed along, but never really had a vocation to head for. It was just a desire that was just kindling underneath, it was just bubbling away. And then about 14 to 15, drama came into the curriculum at school. And that was when I just fell into my own boots. And I just, that was it. I was off.
And you trained at the Liverpool Theatre School. During that period, did you have any role models?
Well, there were teachers that were brilliant. I mean, don't forget, don't forget, you don't know. I was brought up in a family of 5 brothers, 2 sisters, a mum and a dad. All of them were a billion miles away from show business, and all I ever wanted to do was be in it in some way, shape or form. So by the time I got to 16, a friend of mine, who was in the year above me at school, a different school albeit, went to the Liverpool Theatre School, and he said, I'm going to this college, you've got to have a look at it. So I went along, had a look. I did the audition come the next summer holidays, and I got in. And that was it, as soon as I was in there. And I'd never really done anything. So from not being able to dance, having played football, I'd been a boy, a young lad, growing up in the outer cities of Liverpool, the outer villages of Liverpool. Just being a boy in a working class area, then to go into this wearing cat suits and leg warmers and ballet shoes, and you can imagine the kind of grief I had to take from that. And I'm the youngest boy with 6 other siblings. It was, it was amazing. So the teachers, I think, were role models. People in the industry around in the 80s, and all those singers, like I say, I've been listening to from as long as I can conceive, the Frank Sinatras, Matt Monroes, Dean Martins, Willie Nelson's, Glenn Campbell's, all the greatest entertainers, in the world were surrounded my life all the time. So it was, I suppose, by osmosis, I was inspired by all of those people.
Right. Well, and Brookside was your big break in 1995. You were most recognisable for your role as Peter Phelan, the philandering hairdresser, in which you featured for several years. Did the role come easily?
I think playing characters always comes easier to an actor. It's much harder, I think, from my own perspective, to play someone close to yourself. It's easier to escape and be somebody completely different. So he was quite effeminate. He was very flamboyant. So it was great to play. I found it really, really easy to play because I could just, like to being a kid again, get in the dressing up box and play act. It was great.
Yeah, and in Emmerdale, you were held in the same prison as your distant relative, Solomon Dingle, played by Paul Shane. Your character begins a relationship with Alice Wilson, and they later leave Emmerdale to start a life on their own farm in Norfolk. Have you ever been approached to go back and revive the role?
No. It was only a tiny part in Emmerdale. The odd story about that is that when I was doing Brookside, my mum passed away, and that was the catalyst for me to kind of want to leave. I'd already had a discussion with Phil Redmond, who'd said to me, look, we think we might be getting rid of the character because there's only so many people they can pay in a soap opera. So there's only so many staff that they can employ, and that being the actors as well. Anyway, a very famous actor from Brookside, Paul Usher, came back, who played Barry Grant. And they said to me, there's nowhere else for you to stay, Sam, so we're going to kind of get rid of the character. And I went, I don't think that's a good idea, Phil. And I remember looking back at the conversation thinking, that was really cocky of me. But I think common sense-wise, it made sense. And he said to me, what do you mean? Because I was effectively telling him not to sack me, but without realising I was being fired, if that makes any sense. I was just looking at it from a pragmatic point of view. And I said, I think that's a really bad idea, Phil. I said, because Paul is going to be gone in a minute. And then you're going to have the whole fallout of his relationship with Claire Sweeney, the character Lindsay Corkill, who was my wife at the time, and she was having an affair with him. So I'm a pushover, so I'm going to be utilised and used and stepped over again, which can then add more stuff onto me. And he's looking at me like I'm some kind of freak. And I went, is that a problem? He went, no, it makes perfect sense. You're absolutely right. And then I realised, oh, hang on a second, I'm fighting for my job here without fighting for my job. You know, I'm looking at it from a practical point of view. And he said, can you let me think on it? I said, yeah, sure. So I went out of the office, went downstairs, and I told everybody the story of what just happened to all the other actors. And they said, well, that's great, isn't it? I said, no, I'll be gone by Christmas. And then I went on my honeymoon. We got married. My mum passed away while we were there. And then I came back. Obviously, context hit my life in a massive way. And I said, all I want to do is be back with my family. And rightly, as I predicted, I was gone by Christmas. But before that, Linda came in to do the Brookside video to play my ex-lover, hence taking me out of the storyline and away from Brookside. And I did exactly the same with Emmerdale with Linda. I went in as her ex-partner to take her away from the situation that she was in. And we've lived this mirror image of working in soap operas. So yeah, odd.
Well, Dad hated doing television as he felt he had no rapport with the audience, and you were well and truly produced, as you know. Now, his love was live gigs where he could bask in the applause if it went well. You've managed to combine the two in your career with stage credits including Boogie Nights, Hot Flush, South Pacific, Carousel and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, in which you led the cast as head of the American Wild West household. Adam, is it Pontypridd?
Yeah.
Now, you've been quoted as saying that your favourite stage production was Carousel, playing the villain Jigger Cragen opposite Darren Day. Well, what made it so special?
I think most actors that have played, I guess, leading men always hanker to play something different. You always want, the grass is always greener, Michele. You know how it is. Isn't that right, Richard? You always kind of look, see what other people are doing and really fancy a go with it. And it always seemed like so much fun playing a baddie. And it absolutely was, because you got to do things that were outside your own comfort zone. I mean, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'4", so, you know, that could be perceived as, oh, you know, he's overpowering. I'm the opposite. I'm a giant, gentle giant I am. I've never been a bully. I've never been, you know, anyone that imposes themselves. But I am big. I get to play the imposition, you know, that imposing character that is just devilish and horrific, and you never know which way they're going to turn. And that desire to play the stillness of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The unpredictability of that nastiness was just wonderful. And also on the upside of it, I didn't need to be on stage for the first third of the play. I was on for the second third, and I'd finished by the third of the play. So I only did a third of the show. So that was great. I got loads of time off as well. So like your dad, I suppose the comparison is, it's about wanting to have the most impact when you're on there, but be on there as little as possible.
Yeah. And do you have a set routine in the dressing room before the show?
I didn't used to, and then I found, Michele can attest to this because we conversed about this, I started to lose my bottle, and I started, I mean, I look back now and it's so ridiculous, wearing lucky underpants and, you know, having a little word with myself in the mirror and thinking these little kind of nuances would change the way I performed on stage. I guess in the most of it, Richard, no, I didn't have any things. There was nothing about it. I put my costume on. The thing that always got me, and this is kind of away from the question, was I'd always go into rehearsals for a show, and you'd spend how many weeks rehearsing the show, and there'd always be a piece missing. And I always found that this piece come to life when I tried the costume on and looked in the mirror. And every single time, bar none, I'd look in the mirror and go, oh, there he is. And I'd see him, and then immediately all the pieces would fall into place,
Yeah.
and the costume would be fit the character. And so it's all those little things that I really enjoyed doing, that did become a kind of habit in the end of really looking forward to, but knowing that there was a process to get there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when Michele tells me that Matt had this thing about people not whistling in his dressing room, what's your most irrational superstition?
I do the magpie thing, although I always say I think it's bad luck to be superstitious, which is, it's a famous line of mine. I don't really have any, most of these superstitions come from maritime law. The whistling thing comes from the ships, because what they used to do to bring down certain sails on a sailing ship was they'd give a certain whistle command. And now, when the steamships came in, all those sailors now didn't have a job because they knew how to work ropes. So they immediately transposed into theatre, where all the sheets come down, all the cloths come down with ropes. So apparently, one of these guys walked across the stage, an actor, whistled, and the sailor let the sail go, or the cloth come down, and it killed the person underneath it. So therefore, it was practical bad luck, not just superstition. So that's where I think that one comes from. But yeah, but no, never been superstitious. Never really seen the points. There was a point, like I said, I started wearing lucky pants, but I think I got over that.
Have you got them on today?
They fell apart, Michele, when you did as much moving as I did on stage, because I couldn't keep still. They were on a hide into nothing. I mean, it's not a good image, but there you go.
Well, Daddy first met Mum at Mill's Music, and it wasn't exactly love at first sight, as she thought he was cocky, and it annoyed her that all the office girls would swarm around him, which she then came to realise was jealousy. Now your gorgeous wife, former glamour model Linda Lusardi, who you married on the 9th of August 1998, is an accomplished actress herself, and as well as appearing in The Bill and Hollyoaks, she was also in Brookside. Is that how you met?
No, we met doing pantomime. We met doing pantomime up at the Darlington Civic, which now has a different name, and I can't remember what it's called. But it was a tiny little theatre, beautiful theatre. 800 seats. I say tiny, it's a big enough theatre. It's on the number one tour, but beautiful place, tiny little town, gorgeous up in the northeast. And I arrived first day of rehearsals. We're all in the rehearsal room, and Linda walks in, and we're all in a line, sat down in these seats in this. It must have been like a church hall or something. And then Linda walked in with the director. And we all had to stand up like we were saying hello to the Queen. So she gets along, and I'm 5th or 6th in line. And I stand up, and she looked up at me, and she went, "My God, you're tall. Thank goodness for that." That was the first meeting. And then we started rehearsals, and the director said, "Okay, when we do this scene, this is where the kiss scene happens. And I don't want any of that mamby-pamby kissing, stage kissing. I want a proper, you've got to fall in love with it. We've got to believe it kiss," which is amazing if your fiancé isn't one of the dancers in the show. Right? But she was, and she was insanely jealous. And so I'm thinking, oh God, I'm in a horrible position now of having to do this in front of my fiance. But I was kind of at the end of that relationship. Linda was kind of at the end of her relationship. So I guess we were each other's straw that broke each other's camel's back. And, we just got on famously. I was 10 years young. I am 10 years younger than her. We've just had our anniversary just a few days ago. And, it was effectively love at first sight, I guess. I mean, she's beautiful. I mean, who wouldn't fall in love with her? But the irony is, Michele, years prior to this, I must have been in my early 20s. I was on the cruise ships as a young singer. And the MD at the time looked for all the world like Buddy Holly, was in love with one of the dancers. And my fiancée was in the cast with me. Her name was Sue Bailey. She looked like Joanna Lumley. And he was in love with Joanna Lumley. And he said to me one night, "Oh, I've got to get with Sue. I'm in love with her." And I went, "Well, mate, under normal circumstances, you'd have no chance, but you're on a cruise ship and the options are very scant, right? So I'm out the game because I'm with Lee. So just ask." And so he asked her, and she started going out with him. And I did say to him, "This will only last the duration of the contract," which it did. So we sat one day and he said, "I can't believe I got my dream woman, effectively. Doppelganger for Joanna Lumley." And he said to me, "Who's your dream woman?" I said, "Well, Linda Lusardi's my dream woman." This was 3 or 4 years before I'd even met her. And he went, "Well, she's everybody's dream woman." I said, "Yes, but that's true. But I'm going to marry her." And he went, "Don't be ridiculous." I went, "No, you don't understand. This is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. I am going to marry Linda Lusardi." And I was deadly serious. 3 years later, we meet doing pantomime. 2 years down the line after that, we were married. I met him 10 years after that. no, it was 20 years after that. I met him 20 years after that. He was still an MD on a ship. I was a guest entertainer, which is where I met you, Michele. And I saw it was him because I heard his voice. And I called over, Paul Long, his name was. And he came over. I was in the shadows in this lounge. And he put his arms around, 20 years I haven't seen you for, Sam. And then he looked at me and the words he said, I cannot repeat. But he called me a very lucky kind of person and said, you did it. You fulfilled your dreams. And I went, I told you, whatever you ask for, you get, mate. And there you go.
Well, as you say, Linda is a supporter of British pantomime, and you often star together each Christmas at major theatres around the UK. But pantomime has been a major part of your career, playing such roles as the romantic lead in Snow White, Cinderella, Jack and the Beanstalk, Dick Whittington. Then a switch in direction to being promoted to baddie in Aladdin, An Ugly Sister and Cinderella. So what's your fascination with the Yuletide favourite?
Paying the tax bill.
Yeah, well.
Listen, there's always a reason you do this. It's a great job at the end of the year. It's a really busy time. And all the old cliches are cliches for a reason, right? They're there because they're true, and that's what happens in life. You're guaranteed to get pretty much a full theatre, so you know it's going to be a busy time. It's always well paid, and it's great fun as well because, listen, if I hadn't done pantomime, I wouldn't have met my wife. So, I hold my hands up. It's a dream job. And you kind of... You really get to learn your craft when you're doing pantomime because there's so many genres of entertainment involved in the cast. They shoehorn people into the cast to create whatever scene, comedy scene. So you're working with great comedians, you're working with great old character actors, you're working with people who are dressing up as, ugly sisters and stuff. So by osmosis, you've taken all of this in, and it was always great fun. I mean, there were always characters you didn't get on with, but, that's, again, another learning lesson. But I always enjoyed it just because, you could really stretch any character you wanted, and it didn't matter how outside the boundary you got, it was kind of acceptable. Although playing the goodie was always the most difficult role because you got the least out of it, although you worked the hardest. You're singing all the songs, you're in pretty much all of the scenes. The baddie gets all of the praise for being horrible, and the comic gets all of the laughs. So, yeah, whenever I directed, I'd always try and make everybody laugh with every character. But I love panto. It's a wonderful thing, and it's great for people, young people coming into the business to learn, what happened in the old days with us old farts.
Well, Daddy never did panto, but he did love trying new foods when travelling abroad, and he was quite an accomplished cook. Now, Linda won the Channel 4 show Celebrity Come Dine With Me in 2008, and in the show was voted the best dinner host by her fellow contestants. So talking about food, if you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and why?
God, there's so many obvious ones, isn't there? So many obvious ones. Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. This is one of those where I think you probably change your answer every 5 minutes, wouldn't you? It's like, what's your favourite record? What's your favourite film? Depends what mood you're in. I think probably the big one, would be Jesus. Just to know. Just to know. Yeah, just to... if it wasn't him, it would be... Would they have to tell the truth on the other side of the table if you got to dinner with one person?
Well, of course.
I think, who would that be then? Who would what you want?
I'd go for the genie and get 3 wishes.
Well, that's the difference between you and I, Michele. Immediately, you go to greed, I go to curiosity.
I'm Jewish.
There's so many. God, there's so many. Elvis, I'd love to sit with your dad. I'd love to ask him questions like, how did it affect him? Did it change his family life? How did he cope with the fame? It's a tough question, isn't it? No, I'd want to know what was real. Or maybe Neil Armstrong. Did they actually land on the moon? And then the dinner would be over, wouldn't it? You just have a starter because you probably said yes or no, that'd be that. You go, okay, next. Who's next? Jesus. Okay, come on.
Come on in.
First question.
Last supper. Come on in.
First question. Did it hurt when they put them in?
Oh. You once described...
By the way, this water's terrible. Can I have a nice...
You once described yourself as an Everton fan and an all-round ordinary guy who loves old-fashioned musicals and Bond baddies. What role would you still like to play?
Oh, Bond baddie, it's a dream. And it's funny because, I've conversed with Michele over the last 4 or 5 years since COVID and everything kind of happened. And I took myself away from the business, certainly in a performing capacity, and put myself behind the scenes in lots of different guises, I guess. But I'm just getting a hankering back now to start acting again. Because I guess it's in your bones. It's what you do. I'm playing that kind of iconic archetypal. It's a dream. It probably, I mean, more than likely never happened. But to play that kind of level of baddie would be lovely. I'd like to do things like there's little boxes I want to tick, like working at the National Theatre, and I'm going to put all of my strength and my focus in getting back to doing what I do. Somebody said to me recently, "Do you miss singing?" And I said, "I miss being able to sing, but I don't miss having to sing." Because the pressure is enormous. I mean, you'll know your dad, Michele. It's one of those things. If you're a singer and you've got a sore throat, your life, your world is ruined for the duration of however long you have to sing with the sore throat. And it's just because all you do is you feel like you're not being able to do your job. You're not being able to give the audience what they deserve. You're not being able to do what you can normally do. It's a real head mess. Any singer out there will attest to that.
So Matt was famously a television addict, and you said you were influenced by movies. Why did Christopher Walken and Anthony Hopkins have such an impact?
Oh, it's one of those things when you're not in the world that you're in yet. It was in my future. You're watching these people and not knowing why they're blowing you away. It's like listening to Matt Monroe's voice. You don't understand why it does what it does to you. I think it's a part of an empathy. Lots of performers are empathetic. Because to push across that kind of feeling or emotion, whatever that may be on the spectrum of it, you have to be able to feel it, to be able to tell the truth, or very good at not telling the truth. And there are two ends to that spectrum as well. That's a long conversation. But it was just watching how they created this almost unreachable talent for me, because you watch these people so effortlessly do it. I mean, it's the thing I watched on Instagram where Christopher Walken was working for the greatest director I ever lived. What's his name? Jaws. E.T.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
God knows why that left my head. Working for Spielberg, and Spielberg said to him, "How do you do it?" Because he had to do this scene, and every single time he did it completely different. The same words with a completely different point of view, to the point where he just kept having him do it. And he said he's the only actor that ever made him cry watching him do what he did. Having that level, and that was before I knew that Christopher Walken could reach that kind of brilliance. I guess you recognize it. I think that's the only answer. You recognize it, and you hope to be able to, I don't know, copy it in some way or whatever. It's. I love watching talent. I've always loved watching talent. I hate to go to a theatre or a show where if it's not doing what it should do, I have to go to work in my brain and I have to start fixing it. That I'm not paying you to go to work. I'm paying to be entertained. I'm a punter, same as everybody else, and that's what I love. I love to go and escape. Whenever I put a movie on, I love watching people do a really great job. I watched a great movie the other day called something about, oh God, I can't even remember it, but it's the latest Stephen King.
Great movie then.
Yeah, but I've only just watched it and I can't remember what it's called. Chuck, The Life of Chuck or something it's called. And it's a Stephen King novel being adapted into a movie with Tom Hiddleston. And it's 3 acts, but it starts at Act 3, then Act 2, and then Act 1. And it's one of the only things that I've sat there really smiling, gleefully smiling at, for quite a while. I love watching great talent.
My favourite film is The Rock. And I wish they'd put Sean Connery with, what's his name?
That famous actor,
Oh, stop already. You've got me going now. Yeah. Anyway, the two of them, the chemistry was amazing between the two of them. I wanted them to do a sequel, but obviously they never did. Anyway,
Who was the actor? Who's the other actor?
He's the guy who married Elvis Presley's daughter.
Michael Jackson.
Who? No. It was Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
I will see that.
It was doing my head in. Well, you've accomplished so much, but the business can be a hard slog sprinkled with ups and downs. So what motivates you when times are tough?
I've got this phrase that I always use. People say, you strive for success. It's never been about success or being top of the bill or being there. It's never interested me. Things come with that kind of level of wherever you reach on the scale of the ladder. And let's not forget, there are many people who reach the top of the ladder, and most people would look at them and go, how the hell did they get there? Because it certainly is an undiscernible talent. But hey, listen, it's a movable feast, isn't it? But I've always said that the definition of success is making a living. So I've always thought that if you're making a decent living in this life, in this world of show business, then you're successful. Doesn't matter what you do, and it will change at the drop of a hat. You could go in for a cup of coffee into central London. Someone could see you that hasn't seen you for a few years and go, oh my God, I forgot you existed. Why don't you come and do this? And so many happenings happen like that. That's why so many actors you see are out there networking, doing what they do, because when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. So you have to put yourself in it. The problem I've got is I've never really lived the showbiz life. I can put that hat on and I can play it quite easily, but it's something that doesn't sit well with me. I guess your dad was pretty much the same, Michele, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He understood the business, but it was his job. It's what he did, and he loved doing it, but it wasn't his life, right?
I can count on my fingers how many parties he attended. Yeah. It wasn't for him. He didn't like the falseness of it. That's one of the reasons that he came back from America. He felt the whole, image for Cade was just an illusion. It was, it was wrong. He didn't like it.
Most of it was there to sell tickets.
Promoted falseness, Yeah.
No, I've never really subscribed to it. I remember one of my first jobs in Blackpool, I was doing a summer season and somebody invited me out. And I've never been a go-out person. I always worked out. So I was in clubs all the time, singing and doing whatever, putting my PA up and putting it down, singing for an audience. So I spent a lot of my life in working men's clubs and pubs where people would drink and smoke. So going to these places was always a no-no for me. It's like, busman's holiday. So I get to Blackpool, do my first summer season. It's at a small show bar. Cracking show it was. And somebody said to me, come out tonight. And I was like, oh, okay. So we go to this place where the showbiz fraternity would convene at this place in Blackpool called the Dutchman. I had to walk downstairs and I was immediately met at the bottom of the stairs by someone I'd never met before. I didn't know. She knew who I was. She knew what show I was in. She knew all the songs I'd sung, albeit having never been to see me. But I found that immediately like, oh, Jesus, this is a bit too much. And then she started inviting me, introducing me rather to everybody down there. I couldn't wait to get out. I just hated the falseness of it. In fact, I bumped into two people that I'd met previously, and I won't mention their names, but I'd worked with one just the Christmas before, saw him, and he said to me, do me a favour, don't say hello to him. He is a such and such. I won't repeat the word, but you can imagine, showbiz, the words come out. So I go, okay, now I know both of them. So I'm thinking, well, I quite like him. So I go over to the other guy. He's just described. And he says to me about the other guy, don't talk to him. He's the same word. So I'm like, oh, God, that's enough. I didn't even finish the glass of Coke because I wasn't a drinker. I put that down and I left. And that was it. I mean, obviously, you understand that it's part of the job. You have to do it. And you make of it what you will. But it's one of those, whenever we get invited to a thing, I like going to charity events because there's a means to an end for that, But all other things, you realise you've got to put a hat on, you've got to do the thing. And, the only way to get through it is try your best to enjoy it. So I throw a couple of bottles of champagne down my throat. I'm a much nicer person after that. And that's it. We all know that feeling, right?
Never. Yeah. Don't know what you're talking about.
It's funny, though, the way that the mask just slips. Yeah. 2 glasses of champagne. I'm a happy drunk, you see. I love everybody. So.
Well, there you go. Now, Dad was influenced by Perry Como, Sinatra and Winifred Atwell. Who would you say has had the most profound impact on your life?
Showbiz-wise?
Any-wise.
Oh, impact on my life? It's got to be my wife.
Yeah.
It's got to be my wife. Because, don't forget, when I met Linda, I was still very young in the showbiz world. I was still very naive. I was, oddly enough, just bumbling through the business, just having a great time, just going up and doing what I love doing. Because I loved doing it for no other reason. I just loved getting up and doing what we did because it was great being able to do that. And then I meet Linda, who is so ensconced in the world of show business. She'd stopped modelling for 5 years since I'd met her. She'd now been moved into acting. She'd done all kinds of television. We know she was a model and already an accomplished actress and brilliant at it. And she just taught me so many things. And I think there's odd things that stick out in my mind. Like I remember when I was going to Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Was it Seven Brides for Seven Brothers or Carousel? One of the two. I was offered the job as headlining the show, so I'm playing the lead role in the show. And I'm off to rehearsals, and I'm saying to them, I can't wait to get in. I can't wait to start and learn this new show. And like in 2 weeks' time, I'll have all that knowledge and I'll be up there doing it. So excited, like Tigger. I've always been like Tigger, really excited to do the job. And Linda said to me, you've got to be careful. So I said, why? She said, because it's different now. So I said, how is it different? I'm looking at her like she's stupid. She went, no, you're the guy on the poster now. Everybody treats you differently now. I went, oh, don't be stupid. I remember literally contradicting her. And I left for work, for rehearsals. I turned up and immediately it hit me like a spade in the face. And everybody treated me differently because I was the guy on the poster. And it's that thing, when you're on the top, there's only one way, right? It's down. So there's a lot of people willing to topple you. And whether that's the sentiment or not, just people treated you differently because you were the guy that was supposedly selling the tickets. You were the guy that could supposedly do it all. You were the guy that they were all there to be the underlings of. The attitude change was just really strange. So just that on its own was a real eye-opener for me. And you do have to adapt. You have to change. You have to change the way you work. You have to change the way you communicate. And for me, that wasn't easy because I was always the gregarious, get everybody as your friend. And, you figure out your people and what have you. But, I mean, so many things. She's just been brilliant, introducing me to great people, always kind of having my back, pulling me back from situations that I'd obviously try and put my foot in. She's just brilliant in all of it. She's my barometer.
Dad regretted not standing up to the people in his life that had disappointed him, and he should have been more involved in the decisions that led his career. Do you have a decision you've regretted?
Oh, I think pretty much most of them. I was the opposite of that, Michelle. I hate injustice. And I'm not very good at tolerating inability. Because it's an odd one, this. And again, this is going to make me sound very arrogant. I think this falls in most occupations in the world, that there's so many people in a job that look up at the people in charge and they go, how the hell did these people get this job? How are all the people who are most important, all the people who are most influential, how are they in these positions? And it's not that I think I know more, but you're looking at a situation that's so obvious. And I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. So, yeah. So I surround myself with people of a like mind, and they're all brilliant at what they do. And that's not to attest to myself being brilliant. You just see it how you see it. And it just befuddles me. It befuddles me.
Well,
but listen, there for the grace of God. We're all in the position we're in. And I don't think about it too much anymore because you get a bit older and you realise it just ain't worth the fight. So I'm a big fighter for injustice.
So what's the most difficult thing you've ever apologised for?
Oh, that's a really hard question, isn't it? You
didn't think you were going to get an easy ride, did you?
What have I apologised for? Do you know what I think it is, Michelle? I don't think it's specifically things. Because if I'll make a decision and I know I'm out of order, if I've said words within a situation, albeit my sentiment is, I feel, justified, sometimes the language I use within an argument, I don't know whether it comes from being a big family. There's lots of reasons why it may be. I will always apologise for my wrongdoing. If I look back, and it's usually after the event, when everything's calmed down and the dust has settled and I realised I've over-egged the pudding somewhat, I'll always go back and I will apologise for what I said within this the context of the argument, albeit not the sentiment. I'll always apologise for that. But I think I've probably apologised for things that I wish I hadn't said.
Yeah.
It's a weird dichotomy, this. Do you get involved with people's business? Let's put a situation. If you're really close to somebody, and you know something that you know would change the outcome of their position, is not saying anything worse than saying something? That's the question.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's a difficult one. So can you live with yourself with either? And I think situation arose, and I can't tell you the situation, but I told somebody something that pretty much, it didn't end the relationship, but it was a factor in it. And the question I asked myself was, having told them this, or prior to telling them this, am I going to regret not telling them or going to regret telling them more? And I figured I would have regretted not telling them more than I regretted telling them now. In fact, I met them the other day and we discussed this. And he said, no, I'm really glad you told me. He said, because it wouldn't have put me where I am now. He said, and it was exactly the right decision because I was going down the wrong route. And although the other person has never spoken to me again, that's the consequence. I guess it's a fine balance, isn't it?
So you didn't apologise to her?
I did apologise to her,
Oh,
although she didn't accept it, but that's okay.
That's fair enough,
Yeah.
You've apologised to me many times and I haven't accepted it. I have a list.
That's because you've forgotten you've done it.
What do you think's been the highlight of your illustrious career?
Oh, it's been so many highlights in my career. Like working with Ken Dodd in a working men's club, things like that. You know, you stand there. One of my highlights, Michele, and you're going to find this ridiculous, is meeting people like yourself. You know, those wonderful surprises that come along in your world when you have no idea that you're going to meet. And it wasn't until you told me that you were Matt's daughter that I looked at your face and went, of course you are, because you couldn't be anyone else, because you're so alike. You're literally a doppelganger of your father. I was like, how the hell did I not see that? And I know why I didn't see it, because I was trying to avert my eyes away from a person who was annoying you, who's your name, who remained nameless. So I wasn't really paying much attention. But things like that, you know, and getting to know you, getting to know real people are the highlights of my experience in this business. Finding people like Wayne Dobson, who sadly has just died. Linda did a TV show years ago in the 80s called Kind of Magic, and he got MS, and he sadly died from it. And God, you can attest to this, Michele. You know what it is. And yeah, it depleted his body, and I got to know him very late in his illness. But it was a situation where you couldn't speak when you were in public because he didn't have any voice. His voice was so quiet that if there was any noise, ambient noise, it was really difficult to hold a conversation. But we went to his house and we just spent a day, you know, just chatting to him, and nothing was gone from his brain. His brain was still as active and as firing as ever was. His body had given up, and he was still as funny. And, you know, watching him sit there and cry because he hadn't seen Linda for so long, and things like that. The real things in life are the things that stick out to me. Meeting real people, you know, and enjoying those experiences of if I'm working with somebody and they can do it, again, I'm going to sound like an arse, to the standard I expect them to be able to do it, and they can do it back, and we can fire off each other. Those things it's magic to me. Watching my son and my daughter sing, their ability to do what they do, just honestly, it's like fuel to my life. It's what keeps me alive.
And how would you define success then?
I said before, making a living. I mean, I guess there's all the obvious ones, you know, if people know who you are. It's a strange one when you're famous, and again, the word of celebrity has changed over the years, but there was a time when you had to have a discernible talent to be famous. There's a lot of people famous now just for being on television, and you know, they're good luck to them. I've got no qualms with them. It's great that people are making a living. The entertainment business changes, but you used to have to achieve something. Just to get an equity card, you had to have a certain kind of notches on your belt. You know, you had to have a certain kind of amount of credits, worked for a certain company or did a job for a certain amount of time. You really had to work to receive your points or your rungs up the ladder. And, you know, and seeing your name go up the bill, you know, getting a different dressing room, they were all kind of perceived success. But I guess being recognised in the industry you're in for having a certain amount of ability, I think that's a level of success. Because I think, and I can only attest for myself and certain other people that I know of are like mind, a lot of people in our industry are very self-deprecating. You know, we wish we could be something else. We always, you know, try to achieve somebody else's ability. But you've got what you've got, and you just have to make the best of it. And when they tell you you're good, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Well, you asked me the question whether Dad had ever suffered from imposter syndrome. Well, as you know, he was a very humble soul, never quite understanding what all the fuss was about. He really didn't get just how good he was, and he was always genuinely surprised that people would want to listen to him. I only saw him suffer from nerves once, and that was at the Barbican. He stood in the wings waiting to go on, and sweat was pouring down his face, and he asked a runner to fetch him a glass of water, something he'd never ever done before. We had no way of knowing how ill he was at this point, and I think he was worried that he wouldn't be able to get through the show. That night earned him a 7-minute ovation, but once he was in the dressing room, he collapsed.
Oh.
So I don't think he had imposter syndrome, but he did wonder why people wanted to listen to him all the time. He didn't get it. In fact, he did the opening night at the Talk of the Town, first time ever, and that was a big deal back then, to get sort of a long stint there. And after the show, the stage manager knocked on the door and he said, Mr. Sammy Davis would like to come back and pay his respects. And Dad nonchalantly said, yeah, sure. The door shut and he was jumping up and down on the settee saying to Mummy, oh my God, he said, Sammy Davis wants to meet me. He didn't get it. You know, he's like, oh God. And he was one of Dad's idols, you know. So he just didn't get how good he really was.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, talking about your dad there. And here's the funny thing, Michelle. I mean, you know it to some extent, although you go on and you talk. And as nerve-wracking as that is, you're not selling your soul for kind of just to make a living. It's a weird thing being in entertainment, because you realise that you're only as good as your last gig, as cliche as that may sound.
It is.
And it's an odd situation standing in that. It's a space. Look, the hairs on my arms are sticking on end, thinking about your dad stood in that precipice between off stage and on stage, and it's a 3-foot square, right? Yeah. You're in the darkness, stood there looking at the lights, waiting for your name to be announced, and then you walk into the light, and then something changes, something happens, right? I don't know, I can't define that, but it happens. The fear, the terror, when you're not well, and your dad probably knew he wasn't well at that point, of wondering whether he could actually do it once that light hits his face. He could get away with it, but that's not what we do it for. You don't do it to get away with it. You do it to do it the best of your ability, and how you've done it, and how you remember your best performances. And that just breaks my heart.
The stage gave him one of the greatest write-ups from that show ever. And in fact, it was one of his last shows, because, as you know, he died shortly after. But, I've never seen him ask anybody to get him anything. But I think he never discussed it, but I'm sure he stood there thinking, can I get through this? But then, as you know, you walk on and that adrenaline surges through you.
Yeah.
And as you say, something changes.
Yeah.
And he was amazing that night. He really was. He came off, he went in the green room, he was talking and chatting to everybody on a great high. But as soon as he got in the car, he collapsed.
Wow.
I know.
And there you go. It's the final swan song, isn't it?
Yeah.
Terrific.
And it's funny, because when he did that song, If I Never Sing Another Song, it ended up being prophetic.
Jesus. The summer season I did, I described before, when I, went to that night out, that was one of the songs that was in my act. And it was just like, I don't even know if it was that well known a song, but it just did something to me, listening to the words to that. Because, listen, you're probably different to me, Michelle, different to most people, because you were brought up in the music industry. But Richard, I don't know about you. In a situation where you listen to music, until you start to get to know a song, you never really listen to the lyrics. You just get the hook. If I were to say like half a dozen songs to you, you'd probably know the choruses to them, but you wouldn't know the verses. Would I be right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't know. It's to an extent, but I'm a singer as well. You see, so it's a bit different in that.
Apologies for my ignorance.
No. You say I'm not known for my singing. Put it that way.
Listen, I have stood in front of audiences, have forgotten the words to songs and made them up as I've gone along, and they've been singing along with the wrong words. So, proof that they don't know the words to the song. People don't usually know the words. They usually hum along, and then the chorus they sing to the top of their lungs. That's how it works.
Tony Hancock, who was full of neurosis, as you know, and he said to Daddy once, "You've just got to go on stage and sing, and if you forget a line, nobody's any the wiser." He said, "I've got to go on and be funny every night."
Yeah, it is the hardest job in the world. It is the hardest job in the world, unless you lose your voice, of course. That's that.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're a Sagittarius, the same as Dad, and the typical traits are being optimistic, enthusiastic, independent, honest and direct, I can't even say the word. Philosophical, generous and fun-loving. Would you say that's an accurate description?
Oh, 100%. I'm the archetypal.
Okay.
I'm a show-off. I'm not for any other reason than I just love showing off. Don't even want applause. I could do it on my own. Don't need an audience.
So what would you say are your weaknesses then?
Oh God, this is going to sound so like up my own backside. I trust people too much, and that's got less over the years. They're my weaknesses. I'm usually quick to assume everybody's lovely, and very quickly realise that it just doesn't work that way. You learn as you get older. There's no two ways about it. You become a little bit more discerning, but yeah, that's my weakness. I'm too kind.
So, when did you first become aware of Matt Monro?
Michelle, I'm going back to probably in the pushchair. Music has been played all my life, and I've got memories really early in my life of seeing the tassels as I'm laid in the Silver Cross pram outside the front window of my house. I can see the tassels on I'm pointing it out now, like I can see it. I mean, I was probably less than one. So as soon as music started to come into my life, I was born in 1968. So all those Beatles songs and all that music around in the 1960s that my dad played. My dad was a doorman on the cavern, so he was surrounded by music himself and loved music as well, as did my mother and all their families before them. So records were playing all the time. The radio was on all the time. Songs back to the early 70s, so I was in my first 3 years of age, would come on the radio now, and I would immediately start crying because of an emotion that I had back then. So music and your dad has just been around inconceivably for my whole life.
Well, we first met when you were performing your one-man show on board some of the world's finest cruise ships. In fact, we kept bumping into each other on celebrity cruises and became staunch friends. Having a post-mortem after one of your shows, you admitted that every time you sang on stage, you felt Dad was with you. What made you feel that, though?
Oh, it's really weird. Honestly, this is one of those unquantifiable things, and it's happened a few times to me with certain different people. And there's a story at the end of this. Please remind me if I forget. Again, it's going to make me sound like an idiot, but it happened. I can only relay it because it does make me sound rather good, but it's a true story. But I remember playing. I was playing Dean Martin in the West End as well, and there was one or two times, and there's a story that goes on to the end of this as well that again makes me sound like a bit of an idiot, but I'm going to tell it because it's what happened. And I'm stood on stage and I can feel Dean with me. That sounds really weird. The same as I felt your dad with me. Not inside, but literally just a hand on my shoulder. Almost like a nod or a dot of a kappa. I've always been very spiritual. I've seen weird things my whole life, so this is not like it's something new to me. But your dad was very strong with me a lot of the time. Even more so when you were in the audience, to the point where I don't think I got to the end one time. Or I got to the end of it only just, but I was in tears on stage. Because I could feel the companionship and the connection between you and him. And it almost brought me down. But you can't. You've got to carry on with the show. And, you move forward with those things. The Dean Martin thing, the same, of him saying, thank you, son. Just like saying, thank you, son. And the weird thing about that was, at the end of the show with your dad, was I told you that story. And we were both in tears. And then the Dean Martin thing happened to me, I was stood outside the stage door, the Adelphi Theatre in the West End. And one of the trumpet players come out, old guy. I mean, these guys walked with a little, like they were curved. They were so old, these guys, because they've been sitting down the whole life blowing these horns. And he walked out, must have been in his 70s. And you look at these guys and think they couldn't blow a bloody match out, let alone a trumpet, And this guy could blow these horns like there was no tomorrow. He'd come back, he'd come up to me, and his eyes, he had tears in his eyes. I went, you okay? And I'd chatted to this guy lots of times, and he'd been really complimentary. And he said, yeah, you broke my heart tonight. I said, why? He said, because Dean Martin was on stage. And I just went, whoa! I burst out crying. He said, why are you crying? I went, he was with me tonight. He said, I felt him with me tonight. He said, well, when you walked out, he said, I looked up and I had to put the trumpet down, and the second trumpet looked at me, took over because I was in tears because I watched Dean Martin come out. That's what he told me, right? So it's an experience of a story that I've had. And it's most odd. I've always been that empathetic character, so whether that brings in spirits from the other side, I don't know. I've no idea.
I can sort of empathise with that. Yeah. Some years back, we went back to the original tapes of Matt's recordings for a Broadway album that he did. They were overdubbed later, and he never liked the overdubs. He always hated it. But we found the undubbed tapes, and I set about mixing those tapes down, and it was the strangest feeling one particular day when I was working on some of the mixes. It felt just like he was stood behind me, watching me as I was doing it. It just felt like, hang on, that I'm not on my own here. There is a guy stood behind me, watching me do this, doing what he wanted to have happen to these songs in the first place.
It's unquantifiable, isn't it?
It is. It's strange. Yeah.
I mean, I'd say to a lot of people who, either believe in spirit or they don't, right? I don't believe in it. I know it's there because I've experienced it. And a lot of people, I say to people, do you believe in it? They go, no, it's all a load of rubbish. And I say, well, okay, what about, but everybody that does say that go, but there was this one time, they all go, but there was this one time when I thought, and I say to them, look at it this way. If you're stood in a room and you think you're on your own, but you can feel somebody behind you and you turn around, there's somebody there. How could you possibly know that they're there without seeing them? Oh, God, yeah, that's good. It's a sense, isn't it? It's a sense of feeling that somebody else is with you. And I've always been well aware of that. And it was a beautiful night that Matt was with me, because it was terrifying for me, Richard, because I know Michelle's there. And one of the first things I said to her, having got to know and introduced and who we are and what we do and blah, 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 I sat there and I thought, oh God, the dawning of realization. And she said, you okay? I said, yeah, I don't want you to come to the show, Michele. So she said, why? I said, because I sing a selection of your dad's songs. And for two reasons. I don't want you to judge me was the first one. So there's my ego. And secondly, I don't want you to get upset, thinking like she's never listened to her dad since his dad. Like, of course she has. He's Matt Monroe, for goodness sake. You can't escape him. He's on the radio. He's in our ether. He's all around us. But when you're in that close proximity and you're focusing on it, it can have an effect. So I didn't want either of those things to happen. And she went, oh, don't be stupid. I'm coming to the show. Like Michele is ever going to be told what to do, right? Ever.
Yeah.
She's the most contradictory. There's so many words to describe Michele, but all of them are beautiful.
Liar.
She's brilliant. She is like contrary beyond belief, but that you always know what you're going to get. So I was terrified. As soon as that introduction to, what was the first song in the medley? It was Born Free.
Yeah.
Born Free. Portrait of My Love, Walk Away. She walks like an angel walks. What's that one? What's that called?
My Kind of Girl.
My Kind of Girl.
Yeah. Finished with that one. 4 songs in a medley. And so I was terrified. I was just terrified. And you know what it's like to sing with nerves. It's all the things you don't want to happen. It just gets in the way. It's like being a golfer. You have to be relaxed to hit the perfect shot. Same as being a singer. You have to relax and just, it comes out. But listen, we've done a few songs. We've been in front of a few audiences. But it is odd when there's somebody out there that you know is watching you. You know, they're out there watching. Everyone else is there to see the show, but they're watching you, right? It changes you because you can zone the rest of the other couple of thousand people out. But it's almost like this, like Superman laser vision by that person, isn't it? But that was what it was like for me that night, and I was terrified. Thankfully, it went okay, and you know, since we've well, there you go. I can attest to it because we remained friends. So I must have done an okay job. No, she was really complimentary, and to get that from somebody as close as Michele is to her dad.
Well, I've always said you're a wonderful artist, a great singer. I was very upset when you jacked it in, really. But there you go. Well, they say never talk money, politics or religion, and I say what a lot of nonsense. So, like you, Dad was a spiritualist. Now, admitting that previously he had been a complete skeptic, he later said that spiritualism was a subject which had altered his outlook on many of life's problems. It had convinced him that there was life after death. He never went to public spiritualist meetings, but he did have several private sittings with mediums and found many of the things told to him came true. Now, he was advised that he would marry twice and that his second wife would have a great influence on his career. He says that he was told, don't try to force anything. Nothing ever comes from that. What is to be will be. So how did you get involved in spiritualism and what are your beliefs?
Oh, God, yeah, completely. Like I said before, it's not like I believe. I know, because I've had too many experiences. And since COVID, even more so. I mean, I've seen things all my life that are kind of unquantifiable. I mean, like, there's a story, like, this is going to sound mental, but it happened. Linda was married to her previous husband. We were seeing each other. My mum and dad, my mum was still alive. So it's very early in our relationship. So Linda's still living down in London. I'm still living in Liverpool. My mum and dad are in Turkey on holiday. Linda's ex-husband had just had a massive car crash, nearly lost his life, didn't, thankfully. So we knew that was happening. That had happened, so we were aware of that was happening. So I'm laid in a bed back in the house I was brought up in Huyton in Liverpool, and the TV came on while Linda and I are on the phone. I didn't touch the remote, didn't touch anything. The TV just came on. So we're going back to probably 1996. So I get the remote, and these kind of things happen regularly in this house. So it wasn't like it was an anomaly. So I get the remote and I turn the TV off, and I don't mention it. And we carry on talking. 3 seconds later, the TV comes back on. I went, oh, okay. So I turn the TV off. Someone's trying to get in touch with me, and I recognise this. Hence my, oh, okay. Linda says, what's up? I went, it doesn't matter, because this stuff freaks Linda out. So I turn the TV off again. I put the remote next to me. I'm laid on the bed. So, boom, TV comes on again. And I went, okay. I turn the TV off. Leave me alone. As soon as I turn it, boom, the TV comes on again. I went, that's just freaking me out. I said, hang on, love, give me a second. Put the phone down on the thing. Walk to the TV. Unplug the TV from the wall. Go back. Boom, the TV comes on. And I said, the words came out of my mouth. Okay. Now I'm officially freaked out because I've just unplugged the television and it's on, right? At that second, the call was intervened, right? So Linda thinks it's the hospital trying to get hold of her because of her ex-husband, but that wasn't the case. So the voice comes to me and it says, "Is that Ken McGlashan?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Are you the husband of Patricia McGlashan?" I went, "Oh, no, I've got the same name as my father. My father's Ken McGlashan." She said, "Well, I've got to tell you, is she your grandmother, Anne McGlashan?" I said, "Yes." She said, "She's just passed away." Now, my grandmother gave that house to my dad, or my dad bought that house off him. So she lived pretty much her whole life in that house. She'd literally just died, and the hospital were trying to intervene the call. So it was my grandmother trying to get in touch with us to tell me to put the bloody phone down so that I could take the call to, find out the news. So that was one instance, and there's so many others that honestly I could bore you to death with them. If you ever want to hear them one day, I'll be happy to tell you, but some of them are mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, I've had a strange experience with Michele once.
Yeah, I've had a few of those.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I was working. I was working at a school, and this school had some very strange things going on. There was a presence there. There was something going on, and there was one day. This is going back with the days when you still edited video on tape, and I was working on editing something for them, and somebody came in and called me, "Can you go and do such and such for me?" I said, "Yeah, that's fine." I put the remote control down on the desk, and I went and did whatever it was. I came back, remote control wasn't there anymore.
What?
So I just said out loud, "Look, I'm really busy at the moment, put it back." So I went away, did something else, came back, it was back where it was in the first place. But the weirdest thing about that is that Michele phoned me that evening, and she said, "Have you had trouble with your ghost today?" I said, "Yeah, as a matter of interest, yes I have. Why?" And she says, "Well, I had a dream this afternoon. I had a nap this afternoon. I had a dream. And in this dream, I was talking to you on the phone. And suddenly, I couldn't hear you anymore. And so I pulled the phone down from my ear, and I looked at the phone, and it wasn't a phone anymore. It was now a remote control."
Wow.
Yeah, quite. I've never been able to explain that one.
So Michele had stolen your remote control. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know.
But I've had it when I was in Harrow. I've had the lights mess about, and in the end, I said,
I was there
"If
when
it's
that
you, turn the lights on now," and they came on.
Yeah, there you go.
So
there you go. I had one of those just the other night, looking out into the garden at my mum's tree, and I said, "Just show me you're there, Mum. Give me a sign." Ping, the outside light came on. It's honestly the stories I could tell you.
the energy, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the one about Wolverhampton Grand Theatre. So we were doing pantomime there, and the head of wardrobe, Tony Priestley, who's sadly gone now, God bless his soul, was a good friend of mine. He said to me, "Come on, daughter, let's go back to ours, and we're going to have a little party. Some of the dancers are living there, some of the wardrobe people, some of the backstage." So a lot of the crew was staying in this big brownstone house in Wolverhampton on 3 floors. So we get to this house. I'm not even thinking about this. The furthest thing from my mind. I'm thinking about going in, just enjoying ourselves. We've got 2 shows tomorrow, so I can't be late. As soon as I walk up the path, I go, oh, look, hairs on my arms. Look at that. There you go. Spirit straight here. Hairs. I go, "There's something wrong over there, Tom." He said, "What is it?" There's an energy there, and I don't know what it is. So there's 2 windows at the front of this house, the front door, so it's a double-fronted house. So we walk into the house, a little hall vestibule in front of the front door, and then the main front door going in. And as I walk in, there's nobody there, but I feel like I've entered the house party of all house parties. This is like an American frat party. There's nowhere to move. So immediately I felt so constricted in movement, and I thought, geez. Anyway, he goes to the kitchen, which is over to my right, and I go to the room on the left. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. And as I walk in, the whole room changes. Like in the film, you know, where the paint comes down and the room changes? Now I'm chatting to a girl sat in front of a fire, darning her clothes or darning a piece of doyle or something. She's about 21 years of age, and I'm chatting to this girl, 4 legs on the chair, but she's rocking backwards and forwards, humming to herself. She looks up to me, and we start chatting. She tells me who she is. She tells me how much she earns. I ask her questions. Anyway, I walk into the kitchen. I think I've been gone 20 seconds, but they're saying to me, "We've been looking for you for 20 minutes. Where have you been?" So I was in the room in the front. They went, "We came in, you weren't there." I was stood in the middle of the room. She said, "Well, we couldn't see you." I can't fathom out why, but there you go. So I sit down at the end of this table. There's about 20 people in this huge kitchen. And I said, "I think I've just seen a ghost." because I'm now the colour of a sheet, right? And as I say that, the woman who owns the house, who's living on the top floor of the house, comes into the kitchen. She said, "What did you say?" I said, "I think I've just seen a ghost." She said, "This house isn't haunted." I went, "Oh, this house is haunted, but not by one ghost. I've just spoken to one of them. There's loads of them in." She went, "This house isn't haunted." And I had the weirdest question, right, from a 28-year-old lad that came out of my mouth. Now I understand why, because it wasn't me asking the question. I said, "You have a census for this house, don't you?" Who would ask that? She said, "Yeah." I said, "It's in your bedside cabinet on the right-hand side in your room." She said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Can you go and get it for me?" So she went, she's looking at me now like I'm a freak, right? And she leaves the room, she heads upstairs. And as she heads upstairs, I tell them who I've spoken to, her name, what she earned, what she did, how long she worked here for. And I said she was there just before the turn of the century, late 1900s, 1899 to 2000, to 1900.
1900,
right?
yeah.
And her name was, I said, and this is where it gets dodgy, because it was like a radio that wasn't quite tuned in properly. I said, I think she said Mrs. Fish. Mrs. Fish was her name. She was 21 years of age. She earned this much money. This is how old she was. And this is how long she lived here. That's all I asked her. So this woman comes down. I said, "Can you have a look? 1899 to 1900. Was there a Mrs. Fish who worked here for 2 years? She was a tea lady and she earned whatever shillings per week, whatever it may be. I don't know old money because I was born in 68. So she looks through 1899. Mrs. Finch worked there. She was a tea lady who, earned this much money. So all of the facts, apart from an M, were exactly as I'd said. And still, it just befuddles me how you can step between two worlds, I guess. It's just mind-blowing.
Well, everybody could do it if they were able to channel, but it's whether you let yourself, Well, listen, Dad left a legacy of music behind, which still burns brightly today, thank goodness. So finally, Sam, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Being a good dad. That's what I want. I want my kids to look at me when I'm gone and just think, no, he was all right. He was great, my dad. He taught me this. He gave me this, and he was good. He was good to us. That's what I want. That's more important to me than anything else.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. It was a great pleasure, and we both wish you very much well for the future. God bless, my darling.
Thank you for the honour, guys. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Michelle. God bless you both.
Thank you. Thank you too. Thanks again to Sam, and thank you to you all for listening, and hopefully we'll be back with you again next month. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us at pod@mattmonroe.com, that's pod@mattmonroe.com. If you have any stories or questions or anything you'd like to say to us at all, as long as it's clean, please do get in touch, and we'll see you soon.